The Serathii, a race of elegant yet intimidating alien women, floated aboard their colossal mothership in orbit above Earth. Their shimmering scales caught the artificial light of their advanced lab, their elongated, graceful forms radiating superiority. Around a glowing table, they analyzed intercepted human broadcasts, fragments of reality TV shows, action movies, and sporting events. Their laughter was sharp, disdainful. These creatures, one of them sneered, her tone dripping with incredulity. They fight over imaginary points, waste hours watching others pretend, and cry over meaningless emotions. Her companions nodded in agreement, their expressions ranging from amused to scornful. Their bodies are frail, another added, gesturing to holographic images of human anatomy. Unimpressive musculature, limited endurance, and no advanced sensory capabilities. They are barely more evolved than the animals on their planet. A younger Serathii leaned forward, her violet eyes gleaming. It's pathetic, really. They rely on random genetic combinations to reproduce. Such an inefficient process. Our species eliminated the need for males centuries ago. Their leader, a taller, older Serathii with a commanding presence, raised a hand for silence. Humans may be primitive, but their genetic adaptability intrigues me. Other species we've encountered lacked sufficient versatility for integration. These creatures, despite their inferiority, might prove useful for strengthening our bloodline. The others exchanged skeptical glances but didn't argue. Their leader's word was final. She had seen more cycles than any of them, and though her caution was often dismissed as overly conservative, her insight was rarely wrong. Still, the younger Serathii couldn't help but mock. Useful? Perhaps as pets or entertainment. They might be amusing to keep around for a few cycles. Her smirk widened as the others chuckled. But as contributors to our evolution? Unlikely. Their attention turned to the glowing console, where a live feed from Earth displayed a rural setting. A human male was visible, a young man repairing a mechanical device, his hands moving with practiced ease. The Serathii zoomed in, examining him with clinical interest. "This one appears functional," the leader commented. "His DNA profile suggests higher than average adaptability." "Functional?" The younger alien laughed. "He's dirty, unrefined. What could such a creature possibly offer?" The older Serathii ignored the comment, focusing instead on the data streaming across her display. "Prepare for retrieval," she commanded. "Let us determine whether humans are as adaptive as they claim to be in their folklore." The younger Serathii rolled her eyes, but complied. A hum filled the lab as the ship's advanced systems locked onto the human's position. Moments later, he disappeared from the earthly landscape, reappearing in a sterile containment chamber aboard the ship. As they peered at their newest specimen, the Serathii's expressions ranged from curiosity to contempt. "Now," one said with a smirk, "let us see if these humans are as resilient as they pretend to be in their childish stories." The room filled with laughter again, sharp and biting. None of them could have predicted just how much their condescension would come back to haunt them. Jack blinked awake, his head pounding and his senses overwhelmed by the sterile brightness surrounding him. The air was unnaturally clean, carrying an odd metallic tang. His first instinct was to panic, but years of working as a mechanic in unpredictable conditions had taught him to assess before reacting. He sat up, his rough hands instinctively touching the smooth metal surface beneath him. Beyond the transparent walls of his containment chamber stood 3 alien women, their elongated forms and shimmering scales making them seem otherworldly in every sense. They were speaking in tones he couldn't understand, their melodic yet sharp language conveying disdain. One of them tapped a glowing console, and Jack's ears popped as the translator implant in his neck activated. "Primitive," one of the aliens said, her gaze scanning Jack as though he were a specimen in a jar. "Look at him. Limited cranial capacity, no defensive adaptations, and those hands calloused, inefficient." Jack smirked despite himself. "You're not exactly beauty queens yourselves, ladies." The sudden response startled them, their vertical pupils narrowing in shock. The younger alien stepped forward, her head tilting. "It speaks," she asked, her tone laced with mockery. "Crude humor," No doubt. A typical defense mechanism of lesser species. Jack shrugged, leaning back against the wall of the chamber. Well, when you're abducted by overgrown lizards, you've got to keep things light. The older alien, clearly their leader, silenced the others with a raised hand. Her gaze bore into Jack, cold and calculating. You are here to be studied. Your resistance is futile, and your attempts at humor are irrelevant. Jack raised an eyebrow. Studied? What for? You planning to write a research paper or something? Ignoring his sarcasm, the leader gestured to a set of instruments lining the walls. Your species exhibits unusual genetic adaptability. We will determine whether your biology holds any value to us. Ah, so you're looking for tips. Should have just asked, Jack replied, his tone calm despite the growing tension in the room. We humans are pretty good at figuring things out when the odds aren't in our favor. The youngest alien scoffed. Arrogance. Typical of creatures with no understanding of their place. Jack looked directly at her, his smile unwavering. You sure about that? Because it seems like you're the ones trying to figure out what makes us tick. The aliens exchanged glances, their confidence faltering for the briefest moment. The leader broke the silence. Begin the extraction. Jack watched as they prepared their equipment, his mind racing. He wasn't a scientist, but he wasn't stupid either. These aliens had underestimated him, and he planned to use that to his advantage. As the machines hummed to life, he asked casually, for all your tech and smarts, you haven't figured out the most important thing about humans. The leader paused, curious despite herself. And what is that? Jack grinned. We don't like being underestimated. The Serathii worked methodically, their advanced equipment scanning and extracting samples from Jack's body with cold precision. Despite the invasive procedures, Jack remained remarkably calm, his sharp eyes taking in every detail of the lab and its operators. His composure only seemed to irritate the younger Serathii, who sneered as she adjusted the machinery. This is taking longer than expected, she muttered. Perhaps the subject's biology is even more inefficient than anticipated. Jack chuckled from his containment area. Or maybe your fancy gadgets aren't as advanced as you think. The leader shot her subordinate a silencing glance and turned her attention back to the results appearing on their holographic displays. Lines of data streamed across the interface, showing readings they had never encountered before. Their own physiology, designed to adapt and integrate foreign DNA, was reacting unpredictably to Jack's genetic material. What is this? The leader murmured, her voice uncharacteristically tense. She tapped several controls, attempting to stabilize the process. But the data became more erratic. The younger alien's confidence faltered as she read the results. The human's genetic markers are invasive, she said, her voice now edged with confusion. They're triggering an adaptive response in our systems. Meaning what? Jack asked, leaning against the wall of his containment chamber, his curiosity piqued by their evident discomfort. The third alien, quieter but more analytical, answered without meeting his gaze. Your DNA is interacting with ours in ways we did not anticipate. It's bypassing safeguards and integrating. Jack smirked. So, what you're saying is my DNA is better at adapting than yours? That's ironic. The younger alien snapped. This is not a competition. Human. But her irritation was clearly masking unease. Over the next few days, the Serathii began to experience strange symptoms. At first, they dismissed them as side effects of their prolonged exposure to Earth's atmosphere during their studies. But as time passed, their discomfort turned into alarm. Physical changes began manifesting, subtle at first, but unmistakable. The leader convened the group in the lab, her usually composed demeanor shaken. We are exhibiting biological responses consistent with early-stage gestation, she announced. The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. The younger alien broke the silence, her voice incredulous. Impossible. We don't require males to reproduce. Our physiology has been compromised, the leader interrupted sharply. The human's DNA has overridden our natural processes. Jack, who had been listening from his chamber, couldn't help but laugh. Wait, are you telling me I got you all pregnant? Without even trying? That's a first. The Serathii glared at him, their frustration palpable, but none could deny the truth. The hybrids growing within them were undeniable proof of humanity's unpredictable adaptability. The leader exhaled deeply, her usual confidence replaced by reluctant awe. This changes everything. We underestimated the potential of human genetics and the consequences of our arrogance. Jack crossed his arms, his grin widening. You should have thought of that before calling me primitive. The hybrids developed rapidly, their growth defying the Serathii expectations. Within days, the alien women began noticing distinct changes in their physiology, their usual composure giving way to a mix of curiosity and unease. The hybrids weren't merely alien or human. They were something entirely new, blending the strengths of both species. Jack observed the situation with a mixture of fascination and amusement. The once arrogant aliens now found themselves grappling with the reality of their unexpected connection to humanity. Despite their initial disgust, the hybrid offspring elicited a sense of protective curiosity in them. Even the younger, more dismissive alien seemed conflicted, her sharp comments replaced by thoughtful silence as she studied the children growing within her. It's strange, she admitted one day, her voice softer than usual. These hybrids, they feel like an extension of me, yet entirely foreign. I don't know whether to be horrified or proud. Jack leaned against the wall of his chamber, his arms crossed. Pride's not a bad start. You could try gratitude next. She shot him a glare, but didn't respond, her expression betraying a flicker of agreement. The leader, ever pragmatic, focused on analyzing the hybrid's genetic profiles. The results were undeniable. The children possessed the Serathii's intelligence and physical adaptability, combined with human creativity, resilience, and emotional depth. For a species that had long believed themselves to be superior, the implications were humbling. Jack became an unexpected teacher, offering insights into humanity's strengths and weaknesses. He explained how humans, despite their physical limitations, thrive through cooperation, innovation, and an uncanny ability to adapt to even the harshest circumstances. You look at us and see weakness, he said, his tone serious for once. But what you call weakness is what makes us strong. We fail, we fall, but we get back up every time. That's why we've survived everything the universe has thrown at us. The leader listened, her expression unreadable. Your perspective is unique. Perhaps there is merit in it after all. As the hybrids neared their accelerated births, the Serathii began to shift their perspective. They saw in their offspring a potential they had never considered, a bridge between two worlds, stronger together than apart. When the first hybrid was born, a collective silence fell over the room. The child, a perfect blend of Serathii elegance and human vitality, opened its eyes and gazed at its mother. The younger alien, who had mocked Jack the most, cradled the infant with an expression of awe. They are beautiful, she whispered, the words surprising even herself. Jack smiled faintly. Told you humans weren't so bad. The leader turned to him, her pride softened by an uncharacteristic humility. We owe you more than we realized. These hybrids are a gift, a chance to grow beyond our arrogance. The Serathii proposed an alliance with humanity, offering their technology and knowledge in exchange for cooperation and mutual growth. Jack, ever the negotiator, ensured Earth's safety and humanity's autonomy. As he prepared to return home, Jack couldn't help but reflect on how far things had come. Funny, he said half to himself. You started out thinking we were beneath you. Turns out, you needed us more than you knew. The Serathii leader nodded. Perhaps that is humanity's greatest strength. Your ability to teach others what they fail to see in themselves. Jack grinned. Well, that, and the fact that we don't give up. As the Serathii ship disappeared into the stars, Jack stood under Earth's sky, knowing the galaxy had just become a little smaller and a lot more connected.